What's up, guys? Chaz and Charlie, and today we are discussing why is weed so easy to quit, yet so hard to quit. Now, cannabis being on the easier scale of drugs to quit if you're trying to quit, but for some reason it's one of the hardest things to quit. You know, they say things like alcohol and narcotics are harder to quit because they're physically dependent, but although weed, on the other hand, is only either not addictive or if it is addictive, it's just mentally addictive, so therefore it's easier to quit. And I beg to differ because, first of all, this whole differentiation, if I'm saying the word correctly, on cannabis, whether it's mentally or physically addictive. First of all, we like to separate our mental from our physical. You know, we do know, some narcotics, when people go to rehab, they have to continue on the narcotics, at doses, winging themselves off because their body has gotten used to actually being on the drugs. I get that. Whereas weed, you can't just go cold turkey. There are no extreme physical side effects of, quitting marijuana. You don't have to slowly wean yourself off, although that could be helpful and, not just going from 0 to 100. You don't have to do that in order for your body to survive. So I get that. For those reasons, we can say narcotics are definitely, and even alcohol are definitely more physically addictive than cannabis. But the idea of it being just mental and not physical, I say that everything starts mental. Before alcohol and narcotics become a physical addiction, it definitely starts as a mental addiction. So we play that down, as if that's, not a big issue. So something like weed, where, you don't have to, your body doesn't need it to survive. Why do so many people fail at quitting? Now, we either got people who say, like myself, who say, or said at one point, I could quit anytime I want to. I'm just choosing not to quit right now. Really, you're really selling yourself short, But when it comes time to actually quit, then, you either don't commit fully or sabotage yourself into going right back into your cycle of addiction. But I think that weed is one of the easier drugs to, one of the hardest drugs to quit because it's not, quote unquote, it doesn't send your life into a spiral. I made a video earlier this week about weed and the baby boomer parent. And a lot of our parents, like mine, many others, parents that grew up, in the 70s movement, who went on to get their regular jobs and send us to college and parent us, maintain us, but still failed at nurturing us. So in turn, they still, weren't the best parent. So, but because they did the bare minimum or did what they felt was, their job, they don't actually, either they don't make a change in their later life or they don't see their past parenting as a big issue because we turned out, quote unquote, okay. So it's easier for a parent who was like a crackhead to know, okay, I was a crackhead, I was wrong, let me try to do better. Sometimes they'll try to do better by the grandchildren. Or you're a parent that was absent, like there's no getting past that. I was not there, I went weeks, months, years without seeing you, I was a bad parent, let me try to do better. I mean, some don't, but when you get to that extreme, it's hard not to deny it was an issue and some change needed to be made. So the same thing with weed. They'll say, I don't think weed is addictive, or if it is addictive, it's not like me being on alcohol, seeing all the harm alcohol has caused. Yeah, true, but to deny that there's still not some issues with alcohol as well, but because there are not extreme, because we can, quote unquote, maintain life and not, and not go over the edge, we don't see it as a true issue, therefore making it much harder to quit than drugs that send us down this more darker spiral, this darker spiral to despair. So weed is a much harder drug to quit sometimes. Not for all. Some people, can quit anytime. It does differ. I must say it does differ from person to person. It's, people choose their vice of choice. Some people can, just quit drinking like that, and some cannot. Some people can, quit weed like that, and some cannot. But I do find it being either the same percentage having an issue quit with weed or not being able to quit, simply because it appears to not be on the same level as other drugs or hard narcotics. So, if you're trying to quit, we shouldn't justify our addiction based on either outside assumptions or social stigmas. Weed is so acceptable now, and you will hear many people saying it's not a big deal, it's not an issue. What's wrong with smoking a little weed after work? That will in turn make us feel like, okay, do I really have an issue? You kind of second guess your own self based on the social acceptance of weed, because whether we like to admit or not, weed right now has the highest acceptance rate of it at any time in our history. You can now get a job and, take a drug test and show up positive for marijuana and still get hired. I know even I would say 8 years ago, as long as 8 years ago, when I got a second job and my system definitely tested positive for weed. It was funny because I took a drug test and I'm like, oh, well, I can just put this in a can. And it was like a instantaneous, immediate drug test. And I peed, gave her a pee, and the girl was like, shit, you smoke a whole lot of damn weed. Okay, you can sit down. And I'm like, And I ended up getting a job. So I'm like, okay. But many jobs you find now are not even drug testing anymore. And like I said, we got stars, we got media that's promoting weed. We have, of course, the legalization of marijuana. So it's a much more socially norm thing now than what it was. So, in that case, it's also making it harder to quit. It's more taboo now to smoke a cigarette than to smoke a joint. So, it's hard even really coming to a conclusion that, weed is bad for me. Am I just being a big wimp and making a big deal about this? But weed is easy to quit, but very hard to quit. But if you're trying to quit, you can quit just like that. But we have to make our mind up that we want to change. Recognize that weed is not for us. Not base our decision based on our outside influences. Come up with a plan to replace something in your life with weed. Don't just take weed out, add something in to replace it with, so you don't get this free blank space to where you have a higher chance of going back. But once you do these things before you actually quit, you have a higher chance of staying sober or staying on your path of sobriety from weed. So again, it's easy to quit, hard to quit. But if you're on the path thinking, okay, I have an issue, I want to make a change, that's your first most important step. And once you do that, then you're on the path to staying, free or sober from weed. So what do you feel? Are you on your path and you say, it was easier, it was a breeze, which once I did actually finally quit weed, it was easy for me. The issue was my attempts at trying to quit. I never fully made an effort to quit. I would quit with the pretense that I'm going to smoke again at some point in life, not just truly quitting weed and not looking back. Once I made the decision, it was easy and I didn't go back, but I had to make these decisions in my head before I actually quit. A lot of times we'll just blindly quit, kind of in the back of our mind, still intending to smoke in a week or a month, or you get sober for a month or two, and you almost get proud of yourself and reward yourself with weed. We can't have that outlook if we're trying to truly quit. We have to truly change ourselves and say, this will not be a part of my identity anymore. But yeah, so just want to hop on here to say that. And if you have any more input on it, let me know. Until next time, guys, please like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, comment below. Remember, guys, we are all in this together. Peace.
There was a boy named John who met a girl named Mary. John had it all, but he was still depressed. And Mary was different from all the other girls. She actually listened to him. She encouraged him and lifted him up. But the thing is, she would not commit to him. And John became addicted to her. He tried to leave her alone, but he kept running back. But one day, he got fed up. He decided that Mary took too much of his life without getting anything in return. And he met a new girl and pursued his ambitions. And as for Mary, she went on to capture many other men, and she still lives on.